What is up? Welcome into this Thursday edition of Pushing the Pile, brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. We got divisional round on tap. My favorite playoff weekend of the year. I don't know, or my favorite football weekend of the year. I don't know about you. What are your thoughts on this?
I know last weekend was really cool because it felt like it was Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. A lot to look at there. Obviously, some games that weren't too tight. I mean, we've now narrowed it down to the ingredients that everybody loves. And by ingredients, I mean teams. So we're going to get a lot of really good recipes for great football this weekend. I can't wait for it. I mean, I think week one is always a lot of fun because you get to see people on new teams. Yes. You get to see how these guys are coming out of training camp and what kind of storylines develop every year. But at the end of the season, it's the same thing. You're finding out after the culmination of an entire football season, you get to see how this thing goes. And for a team like the Washington Commanders, they're in bonus weeks now because nobody really saw a rookie taking them to the playoffs. Nobody saw a rookie going down and beating Baker Mayfield and Tampa Bay, except for me. But games like this are what it's all about. This is what dreams are made of. You get, a rookie quarterback, a team that nobody expected anything of. Now they're going to go play in Detroit. I mean, that's amazing. You get Matt Stafford and the Rams, who were playing bully ball all game against the Minnesota Vikings. Now they get to go play the real bullies in Philadelphia. It'll be a lot of fun there. Kansas City Chiefs get a rematch against C.J. Stroud. There's a lot of fun stuff to watch, man. And same thing with the Houston Texans. We've been counting them out all year. Although early divisional winners, we've been kind of not sold on the Houston Texans. So a lot to watch.
Yeah, I think it's either this weekend or week one that you could convince me are the best weekends of football of the year. Because week one, like you said, it's finally real again. Now, I do think, especially with the way the NFL has kind of trended the past few years, like week one, you've had ugly football and truly, and we saw it this year, just like no offenses look good whatsoever. And so because of that, I think this is the best weekend. Last weekend, there's like a lot of games, but we saw how it played out. You're really getting now with that seventh team in there, the wild card, you're getting some like lopsided matchups.
Yeah.
This weekend, those lopsided matchups are gone. These are the best 8 teams in the NFL, right? Sometimes teams sneak in there, but more often than not, the people, if you got this far, you deserve to be there. And so when that's the case, usually the divisional round weekend games are like tight games. You rarely get the laughers, the fourth quarter, like the Ravens Steelers last week, like the Bills Broncos last week, where it's just like, okay, 12 minutes left in the game, you can go turn it off and, go for a walk.
You got to watch these things down to the very bitter end. I mean,
exactly.
With the quarterbacks that are involved, with some of the defenses, with some of the offenses that are involved, you can't take your eyes off the television. And for guys like me who are flying on Sunday, I'll have the opportunity. Now, I fly every Sunday. I try to watch all these games every week. It's a conversation you and I have all the time. How can I watch all these games? And I can't. But now that we are in the divisional round, I get an opportunity to be able to not miss a breath of any of the football players that are playing.
Yeah, what's your schedule like this week? Because is Tops this normal time slot? Because the games don't start till 3. So the Sunday slate's 3 and 6:30. The Saturday slate's 4:30 and 8:30. Are you doing
Tops will still be finishing at noon. Okay. I think we start an hour later, so we've got a 3-hour show this week instead of a 4-hour show. But yeah, I mean, we get the pretty much same amount of time to talk about way less games, which allows me to finally get into the weeds a little bit. Oftentimes you find yourself on these shows, and for people who have never done television, Mike can attest to this. There's somebody in your ear, and if you go a little bit long, or if you get if I'm talking about Joe Tooney and his technique, you hear commercial, or get to Brock, get back to Adam here. We've got other people that got to say their part, but with less games, you get to do more analyzing, and I think that's fun.
I don't know about you, but the first time I ever had someone in my ear, like as I was talking, it just completely ruined what I was saying. It was
every time that happens, it ruins what you're saying.
I think I was on the Sports Illustrated draft show maybe in like 2016. I was actually on with Jonathan Jones. I don't know if I've ever told you that, fellow CBSer, but that was back when he was with Sports Illustrated.
Wow.
And I was talking, and they said something in my ear as I was talking, and I just train of thought gone, butchered the rest of whatever I was trying to say.
It's like trying to remember a play call in the huddle when you're at, the link and there's 80,000 people screaming at you. There are easier things in media than having a voice in your ear while you're trying to talk, and while you're trying to not only talk, but make sure that you bridge the gap from the thing that the last person said. You have an understanding of the direction
yes.
the person's going to go in. You don't want to step on their toes. You're also aware of your time limit. And then they get in your ear and it's like, I must have messed something up. My immediate thought is I must have effed something up and I've messed up the show.
All right, let's get the first off the ball segment before we preview these 4 fantastic matchups this weekend. Not a lot of big NFL news. I thought this one was fun to talk about, though. Diontae Johnson, the now well-traveled wide receiver for formerly Pittsburgh Steelers, started off the year on the Carolina Panthers. I almost forgot that he started with the Carolina Panthers this year. Traded to the Baltimore Ravens, cut by the Ravens, signed by the Texans, cut by the Texans, and, well, he just got signed by the Ravens yet again.
Bing, 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 bing.
Because playing Pong over there with AFC playoff teams. Can't play, though. Can't play for the Baltimore Ravens. So if you're looking for a Zay Flowers replacement, he can't play the rest of the postseason because he already was on a roster with the Houston Texans. But now, if he gets signed somewhere, and he'll get signed somewhere, the guy's too talented to completely give up on, and he cost himself too much money to not come on with his head straight. Whoever his agent is going to be like, hey, you're getting a 1-year prove-it deal next year, and you're working your freaking ass off, or else you're not going to make another dime in the NFL. So he's going to go to somewhere with a 1-year prove-it deal. But now it's the Baltimore Ravens who get that compensatory pick if he goes and signs somewhere for a type of deal that would factor into the compensatory pick formula. So that's the Baltimore Ravens playing chess, not checkers, yet again with their compensatory pick formula.
And you know what? For a guy like that, you figure you get yet another opportunity to right the ship in terms of public perception, in terms of the relationship you have with your team. So,
well, I'm not sure he even shows up to the Ravens facility, right?
But I mean, it would be after all this.
What do you mean? So, what do you mean by that?
Well, he's been bounced around to all these locker rooms. What locker room is his? When is he able to go there? When is he able to be a contributing factor?
I'm guessing they signed him, so he can't play in the postseason. They signed him, and they're just going to tell him, don't even come to the facility. You are just now. They basically did it purely for the fact that they will get the compensatory pick if he signs elsewhere next offseason.
So that's all they care about.
That's all they care about.
That's all they care about. See, this is the upstairs talk that guys like me are like, oh, you see, we signed what's his face? And they're like, no, but we're getting a pick out of that. We're not even going to see what's his face. You're not going to eat breakfast with what's his face.
Yeah. And if you're the Ravens, I'm not sure you want to see what's his face at this point. With the way, apparently after the Texans game, after the Texans win, he was sulking in the corner because he didn't get to play. That's why that was the genesis of him getting cut, is that he was unhappy after a big win in a playoff game. So that's a quick ticket out of town.
You know who's going to be unhappy? The Buffalo Bills, once they realize how fast Lamar Jackson is in real time. But what have they done? They've gone and they've signed Anthony Brown to mimic Lamar Jackson in practice. And this isn't unheard of. We see this a lot of times with teams that are trying to get that realistic game speed look from a quarterback, whether it be a dual threat or otherwise. Sometimes they put big guys back there. I've seen it before where they put tight ends in there, like big tight ends in at quarterback, not with the intention to throw the football in practice, but to get guys around them to see how to corral them. But for these little guys or fast guys, Lamar's not little. For fast guys, you try your best to bring in a receiver, a DB, something from one of these skill positions to try to get your rushers to understand how quickly they can get out of the pocket. For linebackers, how much attention they have to pay to angles, because you lose angles so quickly against Lamar Jackson. I just thought this was kind of cool. The Bills bringing in Anthony Brown to mimic Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, the thing is, though, there really is no mimicking Lamar Jackson.
No.
If there's one guy that you could have signed to mimic Lamar Jackson, actually, I'm not sure he's a free agent anymore. No, he is. Kadarius Toney would have been an interesting guy to simulate Lamar Jackson. That's like they're
he would have had to catch the snap, though, Mike. He would have had to catch the snap, and then he would have fucked the whole practice up, and he would have got cut on the spot.
Have you ever seen Kadarius Toney throw, though?
Pretty good.
He has a howitzer. Apparently, can throw 80 yards. The guy's got a cannon. Well, I mean, if we've seen him and his decision-making at wide receiver.
Yeah.
You think about what that looks like at quarterback, and that's what we're doing here. So maybe baseball. Maybe baseball's the move for Kadarius Toney at this point.
I wonder who the Bills brought in prior to playing the Ravens the first time. And if they didn't, I mean, obviously they were.
It looked like they didn't. And we'll get to that when we talk about the game, but that one was a blowout the first time. So maybe a shrewder move this time around. All right, this Sunday at 6:30 Eastern, the AFC Divisional Playoff is on CBS. It's win or go home with two MVP candidates going head-to-head when Lamar Jackson leads the Ravens into Buffalo against Josh Allen and the Bills. Now that's a CBS Sports Sunday. It all begins at 6 Eastern with the NFL Today, Sunday on CBS, and streaming on Paramount+. All right, don't go anywhere. 4 divisional round games. Previewing them right after this. All right, Texans at Chiefs in Arrowhead. Chiefs 8.5-point favorites. 41.5 points is the over-under. This one, well, we saw very recently, December 21st. That was a Saturday game right before Christmas. Chiefs won that one, 27-19. That one was at Arrowhead as well. In that game, Pat Mahomes, 28-41, 260 yards, touchdown. CJ Stroud, 23-29, 2 touchdowns, but 2 interceptions as well. The leading receiver, though, for the Texans in that game, he ain't walking through that door. Tank Dell, 6 catches, 98 yards, touchdown in that game. Obviously, he won't be playing for them anytime soon with that horrible knee injury he suffered. Going to be a chilly one in KC, high of 24 on Saturday. And what I love, Kyle, every single game that is outdoors is going to be sub-freezing at kickoff.
This is how it's supposed to be.
It's playoff football, baby. Just give Detroit an outdoor stadium, and
don't tell Pete Prisco that. Pete Prisco cannot stand cold weather. He thinks that it really jeopardizes the quality of play offensively. And I say, boo-hoo, Pete. Cry me a freaking river. This is the way that God intended football to be played. And you know what? We're looking at this Patrick Mahomes versus CJ Stroud matchup, and obviously fans should be excited because you get two of the better quarterbacks in football. And obviously the running games are, in my opinion, going to be the big part of this game. And you expect from the Houston Texans and the Kansas City Chiefs to see fireworks offensively, but the fireworks may look differently. It's going to be a retread running backs and guys who have been in and out of the league. Kareem Hunt is a guy looking to cap off a tremendous campaign for the Kansas City Chiefs. I think about Joe Mixon being such a huge part of putting that game away in the wild card round for the Houston Texans. One of my favorite visuals was him going along the left side with about 4 minutes left, trucking somebody, getting the first down, and then getting down. Smart player, has a really good understanding of what they're trying to accomplish. And also with the injuries at the receiver position, Joe Mixon understands that he's going to be a massive, massive part of this offensive success. CJ Stroud, you're going to get another crack at the Kansas City Chiefs. We know we were just talking about just before Christmas. He had his buddy Tank Dell out there, though, so it's going to be a new look receiving core for him. I fully anticipate the Kansas City Chiefs to be as healthy as they've been all year, to be as locked in as they've been all year. I expect the Kansas City fans to be wild and crazy. I was doing some reading on this matchup as well, and some things that I wouldn't normally think about. And it's DeAndre Hopkins and Justin Reed and Charles Omenihu getting an opportunity to play against their old team. I think that'll be a lot of fun. They get to do it in their own stadium. And yeah, man, the health of guys like Chris Jones. How much juice does Travis Kelce have in him? The health of the receiver position in Kansas City. Obviously, we've seen all these speedsters be able to line back up there, whether it's bunch, trips, formation. You get a lot to look at as Patrick Mahomes. And the matchup of these offensive tackles versus these defensive ends, that's really what's going to dictate the game. Can the Chiefs stay on schedule in the running game behind their beasts, Trey Smith and Creed Humphrey? And when they do get into third down and, God forbid, a third and long against these two rushers, stick to the basics, stick to your plan, understand that inside out is the way you win, and you give Patrick Mahomes something to step up into with the opportunity to throw it to one of these receivers that have worked their way back into the lineup.
Yeah, this one, a lot of great matchups to look forward to, but it's seemingly like a lot of the matchups favor the defensive side of the football. a distinctly different flavor of game than the last time these two teams played in the divisional round. If you recall, it was only 5 years ago, but it was like, thinking back 5 years ago, feels like a lifetime ago with how different that Texans team was back then, whether it's Deshaun Watson, DeAndre Hopkins in that game on the other side of the ball. That was the 24-0. The Texans ran up a big lead, ended up losing 51-31 in that game, a distinctly offensive shootout. This one feels like it's going to be a defensive battle. But I think, and you touched on some great matchups there, I think the biggest one in this game is those edge rushers for the Texans. Danielle Hunter, Will Anderson against Joe Thuney, Juwan Taylor. That's it. And we both assume that Thuney is still kicking out a left tackle, even if whatever they threw out in week 18 was different. That's their best five. That gives them the best chance to win. I expect that. But it's like, even if they play, that doesn't mean the pass pro is going to be holding up. That doesn't mean they're fixed at that, because these guys are tough, man. 117 pressures between the two of those guys in the regular season. 11 pressures between the two of them against the Chargers. And the Chargers, those OTs, Joe Alt, Rashawn Slater, compared to the Chiefs OTs, a different animal. Those guys, that's a top 3 OT duo in the NFL. Thuney and Taylor, not at that level at this point in time. So I think the Texans have going for them is that they have star power. And what you see in the playoffs more often than not is the guys who are truly game-changing players make game-changing plays. They're the ones who show up, can rise to a different level, whether it's offensively, CJ Stroud, Joe Mixon, Nico Collins, whether it's defensively, Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter, Derek Stingley Jr. It's like they have guys who are stars that can flip a game, can make a play that otherwise wouldn't have. So I like them to keep it close. I mean, last time they covered the spread, right? Last time they came within a 1-score game. I think it's going to be a 1-score game. Now the Chiefs are uniquely different at 1-score games, right? They are the GOATs in that regard. They don't blink when the other team usually does. So I still think the Chiefs win this game. But I think there's a lot of matchups that favor the Texans, and I think it stays close. I just do.
I think it's definitely going to be closer than you may expect with the injuries to the Houston Texans. You would imagine that the offense doesn't have the same firepower. But at the end of the day, it's CJ Stroud, and at the end of the day, it's 2 playoff teams. I think that when we talk about these edge rushers, we have to understand who they're playing against this week and the dangers that come along with Patrick Mahomes getting outside of the pocket, particularly to the right. You heard Todd Bowles talking about how frustrating it was when Jaden Daniels got to the defense's left, the offense's right. So having an understanding of when to shut your rush down in terms of, if I'm a rusher and I rush past my offensive tackle, it creates a lane for the quarterback to be able to evade up and then out to the right. They understand that Patrick Mahomes is as dangerous as anybody in that situation. So I think that particularly on Juwan Taylor's side, the right side of the offense, he needs to do a really good job of staying alive in pass protection, and don't flip your hips. Don't turn to the outside to try to run these guys by. Just stay square, because 15 is coming right inside your left shoulder. He's going to be running. And that's the other thing. If the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes gets outside of that pocket and he does strike down the field, can we keep the holding penalties out of it? Because when you get that retrace by the defensive end, he comes back here, you want to grab. A lot of guys don't want to move their feet. It's the end of the rush. You're tired. I understand it. But you have to understand that your play could be the one that changes the course of the football game. And as we've seen this whole season, it's 1 or 2 plays with the Kansas City Chiefs that ends up winning them the game. You don't want to be that guy that's holding on one of those big plays.
I do want to end with this in this game. Your thoughts on the sheer amount of rest now for this Kansas City Chiefs team. 24 days. That's over 3 weeks without Mahomes seeing a football field. Now, I think everyone agrees that if anyone can do it, it's this team. But it's still a odd schedule in the middle of a football season for anyone. They've had buys in the past. They've never had this amount of time off. Do we expect any rust from Kansas?
One thing that Andy Reid does a tremendous job of is staying on schedule with his group. and having a predictable day-to-day routine. Now, the only thing that's being thrown out the window is there've been no games for 24 days for these starters and a lot of these players. I fully anticipate the Kansas City Chiefs to be as prepared as anybody in this playoffs. It's just the nature of having one of the GOATs as your coach. And obviously Steve Spagnuolo on the defensive side of the ball, they're going to be as locked in on this Houston Texans team as anybody could be. And the great thing about a 24-day break is you're not just preparing for the team that you're going to play, because there's those 19 days where you don't know who you're going to play. So what are you doing in that situation, Mike? You're self-scouting. It's almost like an extended bye week. Self-scouting is such a huge part of having success in this league, because teams pick up on tendencies. Coordinators figure out easy ins or ways they can get you, baited. And the Kansas City Chiefs are going to be locked in not only on their opponent, but on their own scouting reports. I think that's an important thing.
Yeah, most guys on this team, we said way back when, didn't play Week 18. Trey Smith, Creed Humphrey, Joe Tooney, 3 snaps in Week 18. They got just a little run there, but yeah, a lot of time off for this team. I like Texans to cover, Chiefs to win. If I'm leaning anywhere, though, I think I lean over, because I think we see, whether it's Xavier Worthy, whether it's Nico Collins, I think we see some big, long touchdowns in this game if we do see scores. I think that's how it goes.
I got the same thing you got.
Sweet. Let's get to Commanders at Lions. A distinctly different feel. We said 41.5 points was the over-under in the Chiefs Texans. This one's 55.5.
78 points.
2 more. Yeah, right. Like, what number? I think this might be the highest I've seen in any game all season, which is awesome, because shoot, it's the divisional round of the playoffs, and 55.5 points is, honestly, I feel like it's too low. The Lions have not scored under 31 points in a game since, you remember this one. What was the last game?
They haven't scored since the Bears
game, November.
Yeah.
It's been since November since they
should have beat them.
31 points. Yeah. Well, yeah.
It's crazy.
So that was the last time. Watch Commanders, obviously, we've seen their offense and how good it's been this season with Jayden Daniels at the helm, a top 5 scoring offense in the NFL. And for the Lions, Terrion Arnold, a full go at practice yesterday. David Montgomery, a full go at practice yesterday. We think the Montgomery thing, though, it's like,
Montgomery will be nice. It's like sprinkles on ice cream. We like ice cream regardless, but I mean, sprinkles always help.
It gives Jahmyr Gibbs a breather, but
yes,
don't take the rock out of Jahmyr Gibbs' hands at this point, right? Keep the hot hand. There's a reason why we just said since November, they haven't scored under 31. What's kind of been the common theme since then? Well, it's been Jahmyr Gibbs. Yep. That guy's been on en fuego. So I'm not switching up if I'm Ben Johnson. Short yardage, goal line, sure. David Montgomery, that's his bread and butter. But my feature back, it is no more RBBC. It is bell cow season, and it's Jahmyr Gibbs time. So this one, I think 9.5 point spread. I didn't get to that one yet. So the Lions are 9.5 point favorites at home. I think that's a little crazy, because this feels like, so the Lions played some games like this down the stretch this season, right? Where it was just score. And that's, I fully anticipate, even with Terrion Arnold playing in this one, it's still no Carlton Davis, right? So it's still no your top corner. And Terrion Arnold hasn't been particularly good this season. Truthfully, I mean, like Amik Robertson playing on the outside when Arnold was down was even better at times. So, but the Lions played some games like this, whether it was that Bills game where they lost 48-42, whether it was that 49ers game where they won 40-34. It just feels like even if they do get out to like a big lead, 3 scores, it feels like the Commanders, they'll allow them back in and score and keep it within 9.5. Keep it to like a 1-score game by the end. I think the Lions will ice it out. I think they still win. But it's kind of what I'm saying with the Chiefs-Texans, but on a different side. I think Chiefs-Texans is a low-scoring close game. I think this one's a high-scoring game where even if you're up by a few scores, simply by the fact that your defense isn't good enough to compete with their offense, they'll get back into it even if it's not, particularly a close game. I think Commanders still keep it within 9.5.
See, I've got it going the other way, and I think it has nothing to do with the Commanders offensively. I think it has everything to do with the Detroit Lions and the fact that they are absolute juggernauts on the offensive side of the football. And if you're the Commanders, you better not punt. you better not miss any of these fourth down conversions that you've kind of jacked Dan Campbell's whole style from. I mean, we took a look at last week. It was going for it with that Commanders team. And I think it was almost in anticipation of getting an opportunity to play the Lions. They're like, let's just continue to hammer this thing on fourth down. I think the real thing I'm going to watch for, though, and we've seen it at times with Patrick Mahomes running down the sideline and not taking hits because they don't want to hit him out of bounds, late hit. We've had this conversation a number of times with Matt Ryan. Dan Campbell, Aaron Glenn, they probably had a meeting in an office, and they said, I don't care where on the field he is. I don't care what he's doing. You tell your guys to light his ass up. Because as he goes, they go. And by he, I mean Jaden Daniels. And the unit in Detroit better have an understanding that they have to make him pay every single time he elects to run the football. Because unlike Lamar Jackson, who is very good at creating glancing blows instead of hit sticks, Jaden Daniels takes some big hits. He got helicoptered last week. He got his face cut a number of times. He's been contorted in a pretzel throughout the season. And you kind of go, oh, God, whenever he runs the football. Detroit needs to make him pay for that. Now, I think that I'm going to get to it later on in my bold prediction with BMAC, but I think this Lions offense has an incredible day offensively. And I think that the fans show up and they make it very difficult. And if you think the Tampa Bay environment was rough, it's going to take a notch up in Detroit. I can guarantee you that. So whichever team is forced to punt first, whichever team has a failed fourth down conversion, that will be the team that loses, because I don't see either of these offenses slowing down much.
Yeah, this Commanders team is not built to stop this Lions team. They're just not. With what the Lions want to do offensively, the Commanders were the 6th worst rushing defense in terms of EPA per rush in the NFL. They give up big plays on the ground. Those DTs that they paid so much money, Jonathan Allen, who's been banged up this year, Deron Payne as well, and their second-round draft pick, Jerzon Newton. They have not been setting the tone on the interior this year. They are soft up there, unfortunately, for Commanders fans, because again, they're paying a lot of money to those guys to have a lackluster run defense, and that ain't gonna cut it. It's the Detroit Lions. If they can run the football on you, everything is at their disposal. If they're getting 5+ a pop on first down, you will give up 40 points to the Detroit Lions. You just will.
Yep.
So that's why I find it hard to believe that the Commanders can win this game, because when you can do that, you can ice out games at the end. You can, with 5 minutes left, take it to 0 if you're winning. And if you're down with 5 minutes left, you'll probably walk down the field and score still. And still take it to 0 and score that game-winning touchdown. So I just find it difficult for the Commanders to have answers to this Lions and their offense. But Dan Quinn, he's had some great plans all season long. I'm not going to put it past him to come up with something for Ben Johnson, but sometimes you're just at a loss for talent.
How do we see Bobby Wagner getting home against the Bucs? Blitzing the A gap, lighting up the running back. We saw it a number of times, that bully ball mentality. Well, I'll tell you what, if that's your plan against the Detroit Lions, your plan's wrong. You got to find a way to outsmart these guys. Don't try to out-tough the steel wall, because these guys are unbelievable. They've done it all season long. They haven't taken their foot off the gas pedal once. They haven't blinked in the face of adversity. They've been knocked down and gotten up and eaten kneecaps and all the things that Dan Campbell's talked about. So go play the Washington Commanders style of football. Go try to have this kid win you a game. And we talked about taking the bubble wrap off and the training wheels off for Jaden Daniels last week in the first round. Got to find a way to do even more of that, because that's the guy. That's the reason you're here. Go match the production with Jared Goff and that offense.
From the other thing I don't love from the Commanders' perspective is that a lot of their RPO quick passing stuff doesn't really work against man coverage. There's no conflict defender that you can read off of against man coverage, because everyone's locked down their guys. So a lot of that stuff that is a big aspect of Cliff Kingsbury's offense, you kind of just have to throw out the window against what the Lions want to do defensively. That doesn't mean that there's not like mismatches. I think Terry McLaurin versus whichever corner is going up against them, when then they don't have Carlton Davis, is a mismatch. So I do think they can still move the ball offensively. And when you have Jaden Daniels and his rushing threat, I think that's going to be their primary mode of transportation down the football field, is just option runs. They're going to do that till the cows come home, until the Lions prove they can stop it. And I'm not so certain they can. So all that being said, it's just like, it will have to be a Herculean performance from Jayden Daniels to win this game. There's just, you're not going to stop the Lions. You're not going to hold them under 30. It just, that would be a pipe dream. So it's just going to take Jayden Daniels having having a game like he did against the Bengals, where it's just, we're not punting every time we're doing it, every third down, every fourth down, we're converting, because these are the two best fourth down teams in the NFL this year.
Yep.
The Lions and the Commanders were 1 and 2. So it's going to be an awesome game though to watch. If you're a football fan, this is playoff football. This is like how the game should be played. Just trying to a full-on assault at the end zone. I really can't wait. I think it's my favorite matchup of the weekend.
It might be.
All right. We're going to take a quick break. After that, going to get to Rams, Eagles, Ravens, Bills, the Sunday slate coming up next.
Sail GP is coming to Auckland, New Zealand. The City of Sails will be expecting a performance from the Black Foils and their driver, Peter Burley.
All right, Rams at Eagles. Eagles 6.5-point favorites. 44.5 points is the over-under in this one. Another rematch that we saw earlier this season. That one happened November 24th. Eagles won that one going away 37-20. This was the Saquon Barkley MVP game, if you'll remember. Everyone and their mother put him at number 1 in the MVP rankings after the fact. Not us, but everyone else and their mother. Saquon went for 255.
Joe Burrow MVP.
Saquon, I agree. Saquon went 255 on 26 carries, two touchdowns. A.J. Brown actually caught balls in that game. 6 catches, 109 yards, and a touchdown. So the Eagles' offense was humming, but the Rams' offense actually played well in that game, considering all things considered. Stafford, 24-36, 243 yards, 2 touchdowns. Puka Nacua, 9 catches, 117 yards. Cooper DeJean had some white-on-white crime, 2 pass breakups. So a lot of fireworks the last time around. I think we see a distinctly different matchup this time around. I think those fireworks, the explosive runs that we saw again and again, I think the Rams are going to sell out entirely. They're going to say, do anything you want in the passing game. We'll give you favorable matchups. We don't care.
We're not letting Saquon hit home runs.
Yes.
And I'm reading a stat here from the Rams website. One of the biggest differences in that first matchup was the Eagles' explosive plays. Of their 10 longest plays in that game, 7 went for 17 or more. That just tells me that somebody's in the wrong gap on more than a handful of plays. And that's the part of the game that's supposed to be the easy part. This is my zip code. This is where I stay. Obviously, I didn't play defensive line, but I can tell you as an O-lineman, if a defensive lineman crosses my face and he's supposed to be over here, we're probably going to hit a home run. I don't really have to block anybody very well. You couple that with the fact that this Eagles group is a bunch of bulldozers, a bunch of earth movers on the offensive line, and it could spell disaster. I mean, I don't care how much experience you have against Saquon Barkley, how many seconds you spent in chase looking at his butt cheeks running down the field. I mean, there's just some guys you can only hope to contain, and I would hope that, like you're talking about, they have a full commitment to making the Jalen Hurts passing offense beat them and not that running game with Saquon Barkley, because you and I both know we could go to that well 30 times and get out of here in record time with a win if I'm the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, and factoring into this, that could spell disaster for the Rams as well. Could be snowing on Sunday. There's a chance of snow. If there's snow on the ground and you can't get footing against this Eagles offensive line, good night. It's over. You lost. You're losing.
And there's some quarterbacks, like when I got to Kansas City, I remember it was super, super windy for a 1:00 game. And I'm over there on that heated bench like 2 hours before the game. And I'm sitting there with Patrick and like Creed. And Patrick goes to play a little bit of catch and he's over there. He's cold. And I look at Mike Kafka, I think it was at the time, who was the quarterback's coach, who's now a head coach candidate. But I was like, hey, Kaf, are we going to run the football more today? And he looks at me. He was like, this guy throws the ball through the weather. Like, there's a handful of these quarterbacks that are like that in the league. Josh Allen, obviously, and Patrick Mahomes at the top of the list. And when you talk about snow being on the ground, I think about what kind of running backs would have success in snow. Well, it's the guy with cat-like balance and explosion of a cheetah and strength of a rhino. That's Saquon Barkley. So that plays immediately into the hands of that Eagles offensive line. They're going to have the benefit of communication pre-snap. They're at home. So whatever the Rams do, whatever they stem to, they're going to have it locked in. They're going to have their footing. They're not going to be the offensive line moving forward, defensive line sitting on it. If it is snow, if it is a grimy surface, it never bodes well for those defensive linemen, and they just bitch about it. It's just like when the Eagles were in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs. They just love to complain against that about that field, right?
Were you there when the Bears and the Shady McCoy game in the snow?
I was not.
Okay, so I think that was the year before you got drafted then.
Yep.
Where he went for like 250 on the Bears. I don't know if you remember that one.
Shady. It was like a whiteout.
Shady in the whiteout, yes. And it was that Eagles offensive line the Bears, they had a terrible defense that year, but they just got caved in.
We inherited that defense the next year. Actually, it was this was the Colts. It was LaShawn. He was on the Bills, and he played against the Colts.
No. There was a Shady McCoy with Chip Kelly snow game.
Oh, that it had to be 2013 though, because my rookie year was Chip's for rookie year.
Was it? It may not have been the Bears then. I think it was.
We played in some snowy games. That's for damn show. I'm not one of those guys who remember every. Some guys like they are like, it was second quarter. There was 2:17 left. We ran Z right, gun bunch left.
You're not Sean McVay. You don't have that. Okay.
I didn't have that. Didn't come standard on this package.
But I swear there was a game where it was snow. Maybe it wasn't the Bears. Maybe it was someone else.
But the point is, some of these guys
but
are built differently from a balance standpoint, from a burst standpoint, from a confidence in their own self standpoint. When it snows, a lot of people are worried about their footing, and some guys are just playing the same game. It's just like that conversation about quarterbacks when it's windy, and some people are trying to guide the football, and some guys just throw that some buck right through it. That's Saquon Barkley.
I agree. And I like the Eagles a lot in this one. I actually even like them to cover 6.5. I think they win this one going away. And I like the under as well. I just think if it is snowy, as much as I think Stafford can play in the snow, it's just these guys are out in LA, man. It's a different animal. If you're not in it consistently.
And they're even slower in the snow. Not a fast team, even slower in the snow.
So all that being said, give me the Eagles. Give me the under.
I love the Eagles in this one. And yeah, the under could definitely hit. And there's going to be a lot of bettors that have Saquon over numbers, and they might be mad because he could be taking knees here. They could be in 4 minutes with 10 minutes left in the game. And I love the Eagles.
All right, let's get to the final game of the weekend. Ravens, Bills. Ravens are a favorite on the road. 51.5 points is the over-under. Well, because last time these two teams met, September 29th, Ravens won 35-10. Blowout game. Josh Allen went 16-29, 180 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions in that one. Lamar Jackson only 18 pass attempts, but he completed 13 for 156 and 2 touchdowns. This was a Derrick Henry game, though. 24 carries, 199 yards, and a touchdown. I fully expect it to be a Derrick Henry game once again. I think they try to set the tone on the ground. No Zay Flowers in this one, but a guy that's back for the Bills who wasn't there the first time, Matt Milano. He looked great against the Broncos this past weekend. Is that enough? Is that enough to turn the tide for the Bills in this one? How do we see it playing out?
It'll be like you seen those kids throw sticks in the spokes of their bicycles, and it might piss the bike off, but it's not going to stop the bike. I think Derrick Henry's got about 160 yards average the last 4 games. And like you said, they've leaned on him a great deal. And I think it's going to benefit Lamar Jackson in the long run here in the playoffs. I think that you're going to be forced to respect and game plan for Derrick Henry. And you're going to have to load the box in the same kind of way we talked about with Saquon Barkley. But the difference between the Ravens and the Eagles is that Lamar Jackson plays quarterback for the Ravens. And, we're not having this. There is a ceiling on the passing game conversation with Lamar Jackson. And I think regardless of the weather, regardless of the venue, Lamar Jackson will show up and play well. But to your point, I mean, this team has whooped their ass before. They're trying to go and do it again. And I think that the key matchup will be that defensive coordinator in Baltimore having a dynamite game plan to frustrate Josh Allen. And we know that he's going to probably want to get the ball out quick and be on time and be in rhythm. But at the end of the day, you can plan a pretty picnic, but you can't predict the weather. Sometimes Josh Allen is going to vacate the pocket. And when Josh Allen vacates the pocket, that's when he becomes the most dangerous, whether he's on the sideline throwing a 60-yard bomb across body to Matt Collins, or if he takes off and runs over 5 Chiefs defenders, which we've seen on the way to the end zone. What is the plan? Who are the guys on that Ravens defense that are told you are able to get out of your assignment if you see Josh Allen do this? If we can stop Josh Allen, we can stop this Bills team, and it doesn't have to be a close game.
Some other big pieces, though, for the Bills that are available. Not only Matt Milano, but Terrell Bernard back this time around, Teron Johnson. So your box players who play the run are going to be completely different this time around. And the D-line is the same. And that may be a little bit worrisome for the Bills, but it could have a distinctly different flavor because of all that. This one's one of those where it's just like, dude, I don't know. I don't think anyone knows. And it's like the MVP conversation. You can have one stat that points this way, and then another stat points that way. And then you can rebuttal basically any argument with another one. And that's how I feel about this game. So this is one where I don't have a take. My take is I think both Lamar and Josh show up. That's my take.
Yeah.
I think they both have games where it's just back and forth, that the offenses are dictating the terms more so than the defenses. But if I had to, one way or the other, I just think the Ravens defense is better. I don't think I give any offense the upper hand in this one, but I think right now, as it stands, and we've talked about this Ravens defensive turnaround ad nauseum, but they're just better at this point in time. So give me the Ravens because of that.
And I think that with it being a Derrick Henry game, this is like a great blueprint to just go back to the well, go back to the well, go back to the well. And as we know, sometimes you'll get 3 yards of carry in the first quarter, but I think you get to 7 yards of carry by the second quarter if you continue to feed him. That's going to open up a lot of lanes for Lamar Jackson to be able to run the football, because what happens when you continue to hand the football to Derrick Henry and continue to commit at that mesh point to handing it off, the defenders are going to start to come down on the football. Lamar is going to be able to take it and run with it. I think that if it is a close game, we're going to see Lamar Jackson ice it on his own legs. I think that's what we're going to see towards the end of the game. Lamar being able to run the football.
Oh, that is a great segue into our locks of the week, because I do have Lamar and his over rushing prop is one of them. But let's take a look at last week's locks of the week, because we didn't have a great time kicking off our Wildcard weekend. I only hit the GB Philly under. You only hit the Saquon Barkley over. But you're riding this week with Saquon because you have him over 126 rushing and receiving yards. Jaden Daniels over 1.5 passing yards, and the Lions minus 9.5. I have the Texans to cover 8.5 as one of my locks. I have the Rams Eagles under 44.5, and I have Lamar Jackson over 52.5 rushing yards. If this was a regular season game, I might not love it, but it's postseason.
Yeah, it's the playoffs.
Exactly. You're putting your guys out there and giving yourself the best chance to win. Your best chance to win is Lamar with the ball in his hands out of space. Harry has Jahmyr Gibbs over 113.5 rushing and receiving yards. I hope for the Lions' sake that he hits that over, that he gets enough touches to hit that over, because I think that's the best path to win. And there's our show for today. A quick preview of Divisional Round. We'll be back Sunday night. I'll be back Sunday night with John Breach, breaking down all 4 games from the weekend. And then we'll be back on Tuesday with Pete Prisco. Until then, thanks for tuning in. Keep pushing.
Peace.